All right, we're recording now. Perfect. So how are things going with you? How's your day started so far?
It's the day's been good. Last night I was shooting here until about 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Wow.
Then I had some things to do. I literally I'm like when I came on, I
Yeah.
just left another call with a client. We're shooting a film for them, and we just did the concept pitch. So I'm ready to go, man. My wheels have been turning all morning, so it's been a great
Amazing. I love it. I love it. I love the energy, just the energy from your camera, the colors, like the shirt. I'm loving it. It's awesome.
Awesome.
So, yeah, for those of you who don't know, we got a lot of our team members on the line here. So Thomas, you're the CEO and lead strategist at Godspeed Communications, owner, of course. And you're coming up on 10 years, over 10 years?
Yeah, coming up on 10 years in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's and I think we first met, what was it? I'm thinking like probably about 4 years ago. I know the first project was, I think it was Jameson Mills. We did a little bit of work together. And I know Tudu Dunn does some stuff over the years. And now more recently, we've been working together on Mobile Clinic, which is obviously a very important partner of ours. And honestly, from our interactions and the work you've done there and what you brought to the table and your creative strategy, like I have nothing but respect for you, for your work. I think it's, honestly, truly grateful for having you as a partner. You're amazing. So
thank you. I really appreciate that. And honestly, I mean, I have an awesome team, and that's something that people don't always see. They see us in these meetings, but my team is incredible. And it's nice to be able to take a big idea, translate that to a team, and they get it, and they feel it, and they care. So
yes,
salute to them too.
You've also, I think you've built that culture over the years, right? Where it's enabled the team to really have success and hiring the right people and allowing them to perform too, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm a team guy. I always have been. The job that I had before starting Godspeed was I used to play football, and I was a captain of all my teams growing up as a kid. I played soccer, basketball, football, rugby. I was always a captain, and then eventually in university I became a team captain. And I always loved having a team. I never really liked playing solo sports, and that's our culture. We're a team. We all have responsibilities. We all have to carry a certain amount of the weight. And we hold each other to high regard, but we have fun. And the biggest rule is to really be creative and think outside of the box. So that's really helped.
I love that. So you mentioned like creativity. I find it's such an interesting subject, and you can really I'm sure you could talk about it for days, right? Like, what is your approach with that?
You know what? I think that creativity starts with something very uncreative. It starts with a box, a framework. It starts with the brief. And let's use Mobile Clinic, for example.
Yeah.
We're on a call yesterday, and what we talked about the whole time was a challenge, a problem.
Yes.
I think that real creativity starts with a real problem. I think creating art for the sake of creating art is not good art. And I know that's very subjective, but for me, I think creativity is about really being able to identify, articulate, and characterize a problem. And that's where creativity starts for us at Godspeed. We really put a lot of effort into doing the digging so that the artistry is a result, of our creativity at the identification of the problem base,
Wow.
So that's what creativity really is for us, is understanding the problem.
I love that. And I mean, there's all kinds of different size problems. We got small things that can be resolved in a day, and some are probably, honestly, years figuring out a problem, right? So that's really interesting. Yeah. I love that approach. So how many of you are now over at Godspeed? What's your team composition like?
So in terms of kind of positions, we have account managers, creative director, art director, designer, web developers, copywriter.
Yeah.
And our team right now is 7 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That's our core team. And then we have a bunch of partners that we work very closely with as well. And the truth is that that's actually changing because of pandemic. People realize that they wanted to work for themselves. People don't trust don't necessarily trust bigger structures because they know that structures don't know what to do if we have another pandemic, you know? So some of the people on our team, you know, they still work full time, but they have more freedom in their work structure. You know, they've decided to be, you know, workers contractors or whatnot. And it's fun because at the same time we're bringing on more full-time people. So it's shifting and changing, but we have seven core members of our team, and we're in the, like right now we're in the process of growth because we can't actually manage all the projects that are starting to come in. So it's now time to grow for sure. So
absolutely, the opportunity is there. I mean, it's been a challenging, I'm sure you've similarly been a challenging, you know, few months for any business owner and business and employee and everyone adapting to where we're at right now, right? But there's definitely, we're fortunate that the opportunity in our industry allows us to be busy and, you know, feed our families.
Yes, big time. Well, you know, like a few days before a quarantine started, like I opened this brand new 6,000 square foot space. and the funny thing is that like part of it is like an artist in residence, space for artists in residence. And then the other piece is like our photo studio and Godspeed. And I'm just like, this whole idea is community driven and no one wants to be around anyone. So I'm like, you know, what am I going to do? You know, we quadrupled our rent cost from November to January, you know, by moving into a bigger space and all this hits. And I really didn't know what to do. And you know, what's funny is that like, we just decided as a team, you know, since we don't know what to do, let's just do something that helps someone else. So we started in quarantine by just offering these free workshops. We call it the With You campaign. And we offered, you know, 3 free workshops to help businesses to focus on their identity during this time, and to basically leverage who they really are to find answers in this time. That sparked a whole bunch of business for us.
Wow.
And the business didn't even all come out of those workshops. It came from people seeing the workshops from the outside going, hey, you know, are you going to run that again? And I'm like, well, we haven't, but we offer this as a service. Yeah. And next thing you know, like we did probably 60% of what we normally sell in a year in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Honestly, I love that. And, you know, over the we've been doing the training Thursdays, basically, let's call it 6 months. And how many speakers, you know, all influential, amazing people, how they say, start with helping people.
Yeah.
And what transpires, you know, it turns into amazing things for everyone, right? So it's really good to see that. I think that's really creative and a good way to, again, solve a problem, right? That's at the same time, help people too, right? So that's really great to see. I love that. So you mentioned before you're big into football. And you know, you before you started the business, what were you doing before you started the business? What was your job?
So really, after university, I signed a contract to play in Chicago, and I was in Chicago for a few months, and then I got back to Canada. I worked out with the BC Lions and the Toronto Argonauts, and it was kind of mid-season because I was in Chicago first, and I didn't get picked up. It's funny because my agent was telling me like, you need to be ready because Toronto's gonna bring you in, and it just didn't happen. And I just felt like I was being called away from football. I woke up one morning and I just didn't have it, you know, I just didn't have it in me anymore to continue. Wow. I felt like doing something different because I've been playing football since I was 13, 14. And at the time I was about 25, you know, 25, 26. And I asked myself a quick question. I said, you know, when was I the happiest in not playing football? And in my last year, I went back for kind of a victory lap. I had a year of eligibility. I'd already graduated, but I had to stay eligible and take 3 courses. And one of my electives was a photography class. And I said, you know what? I loved shooting photography. It was a black and white film class. My teammates used to laugh at me all the time because after practice, I wasn't going to their house to play Halo anymore. I was going to the dark room to develop photos of my then dog. I had a big Doberman named Boss. I used to just use him as my subject all the time. And I said, you know what? Let me borrow like $1,500 from my dad and buy a camera because I was broke as heck at the time, living in my parents' basement. And he lent me the money. I bought a camera, and all she wrote, it turned into Godspeed.
That's amazing. I love that story. What position did you play?
I played a few positions, but I tell people this all the time. I went into university as a fullback, so someone who blocks for the running back, and I ate my way to the offensive line. Yeah. So I started off as a fullback, but I ended up as one of those guys at the front with the big bellies who are really strong, who protect the quarterback. So that's yeah, that's it. Yeah, but I had a lot of fun. I did well. I was good at it.
Nice. Yeah. Favorite NFL team at all?
Favorite NFL team was always, it's funny, people laugh at me now, but it was always the Rams. That was my team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they beat Dallas a few years ago. I still haven't forgotten it. You know?
Oh, Dallas is your team. That's cool.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for you.
I know. It's horrible. It's been into a rough 10 years plus. All right, we'll get back to marketing now. So, building a team, like managing a team, like what are some of your top tips for building a team?
Okay, the first tip I would say is you need to be extremely honest with yourself and self-aware enough to understand what you bring to the table as a leader is. I can say that where I've grown the most and where I've become a better team builder is understanding like the areas that I suck in. You know, I thought because I started the business that I should be managing it. And I realized, oh, snap, I should not be managing this business. I'm a creative. I love hanging out with people. I like to explore the problems and create art. The first tip I would give people is to be self-aware enough to know exactly what your skill set is and flow in your area of genius. The second tip would be to understand what your personal capacity is. How much capacity do you have for doing the work? And then when you can acutely say, I have the capacity to do 20% of this, you need to then name that the missing 80% and say, let me outline what each unit for that remaining 80% is, and then find the right people for those spots. And as a business owner, sometimes you have to say, hey, Kay, look, I need to hire one person to fulfill these two things for a time, but it's best to have individuals in their area of genius. And those are kind of the first two that I've mentioned. And then also in team building, it's really important is having the time to train your people. Like what you're doing right now is incredible, because you're clearly investing in your team's ability to hear new things. And that's what grows the entire squad. That's what grows you as a leader. And that's something I haven't necessarily done that well over the years. I think I've done a good job of kind of spewing out what's in my head and creating, the frameworks necessary, but taking that time, saying that this is training time, that's something that's even new to me. And I'm realizing that it's very, very important to do that with your team, or else your team will not get to a level of mastery. And I think that's what you also need to look for in building a team, are people who want to achieve a level of mastery. If they don't want to achieve a level of mastery, forget about it. Tell them to work somewhere else. It's really important to achieve a level of mastery, and they should be also holding you, the leader, to that level of mastery as well. Like saying, hey, look, you're like, where are you going to take us, and how are you going to grow as a leader? And I have those very transparent and honest conversations with my team, and I ask them to tell me where I need to improve all the time, because I want to be the best at what I do, and I want our clients to get the best from us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, everything you're saying is music to my ears. Definitely I think it's challenging, like personally. So SEO Plus, I mean, we're younger than you. We're about a little over 8 years. And like, for me, there's different stages in the company, right? Like early on when it's you, maybe another partner, a couple people, you get your first employee, then you build out, and then all of a sudden you're 10 people, and every stage has like these new challenges, right? And like you mentioned, like, okay, so the other 80% figure, who do you need to help? But I find like sometimes once you get to a certain point, there's all of a sudden these new challenges and new problems. You're like, I actually need a new person for this role, because it's not everything I don't think of. It's like it could be accounting because there's so much bookkeeping to do. It could be a support person because there's so many tickets. It's a good problem to have, but it's like all these extra things, right? And I think, for us, I mean, we're almost 30 team members right now. And historically, we've always been like in the office together, collaborating. Like, people overhear things. It brings an idea. That day-to-day communication in the office, like the water cooler talk. It's just like not having that and fully working remotely, I think is definitely challenging for teams. As a leader, it's challenging. Just getting two people on the same page, or like doing meetings or whatever it might be. I think there's burnout from Zooms and Google Meets and all that kind of stuff. Like it's a trying time as a team, as a leader, and I think those things that you're mentioning about like transparency and everyone being on the same page and just working together, like we all have the same mission, we have the same goal. How do we get there together? It's so important. It really, really is.
Big time. And just for clarity, Godspeed's 10 years old on paper, but we didn't start serving the general public until 2013. So from November 2010 to 2013, it was basically like just me and one major contract. Our first contract was with Canada Post. It was a full-time contract. So it was me at Canada Post for 3 years. Then I started building a team in 2013. So I understand, some of these growing pains as well. And, you mentioned something at the end of what you were just saying is, that kind of unified focus, being on the same page. I think that's another point to someone building a team. It's like, you can't bring people into something that doesn't have a focus. And I've also done that. I'm the victim of all of my advice today. Like you get an idea, it's not formulated yet, and you're bringing people into the idea to create something, and it's not formulated yet. And it's funny because what we do, that soul guide that we create is really us taking a process to help people to understand who they are so that they can come to these singular focuses or this singular focus. So that's very important. Being united under that, a focus is very important.
Absolutely. Oh, we got a question already. That's an early one. I don't know if we're saving that for after. Well, okay, let's hear what Kara. Most businesses fail in their first year. What do you think it takes for new businesses to get over that hump when they're starting out? Also, congrats on 10 years.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think most businesses don't make it past that first year because they don't understand a few key things. I think the first thing that a lot of businesses don't understand is really the problem that their product or service solves in the lives of their clients. And I can also say that from experience. When we first started, we used to talk about logos and colors and widgets and doodads, not understanding that a logo needs to fulfill a greater problem than we need a prettier thing. I think a lot of businesses struggle there. And the reason why they die is because they can't sell their product. They can't actually illustrate value to their target audience or to their the people they're selling to. They can't tell Brock why it's important for him to have this thing. They really don't understand what that thing really does in the lives of their clients. That's one thing. Second thing is typically the leader is either doing too much, not doing enough, or is operating in the wrong place of genius. So the leader is doing the bookkeeping when they know nothing about numbers. So they don't know that they should be hiring an accounting firm right away or hiring an accountant right away. One of our clients is a lead accounting. We just helped them kind of rebrand. And one of the things that is so important that they do, and they're also our accountants. One of the things they do is they support small businesses, not just by kind of just doing their books, but they actually advise the small business and create a growth plan and meet with the small businesses, twice a month. And they do a lot with the small businesses. And they don't say that anywhere on their website or anything like that. And they're a very successful firm with tons of clients and great clients, but they don't say that anywhere. So in this new kind of phase of elite accounting with this new repositioning and rebrand that we've just gone through with them, you're going to start to see that at the top of the message, that we support small businesses, and this is what it looks like. Their business is going to grow exponentially because of that. Most startups don't know how to do that, so they don't know how to find, fill the right holes in the beginning, and we really need to be able to do that. And then the last thing I'll share with to answer your question is, I think a lot of small businesses actually don't know who they are from an ethos perspective. They know that they create a product. They know that they have some clients, They know a little bit about what their audience looks like, but just understanding who they are from a big idea perspective. You know, what's the thing that guides their company? What's the North Star? From a vision standpoint, what does it really look like, you know, in the future? At the end of the day, what am I trying to achieve? A lot of them can't really answer that question. Even big businesses can't answer that question, who've been around for a long time. And then how am I going to get there? Very practically, how do we get there? How do we do that on a daily basis? You know, how is our mission magnanimous? How does it help? How does our impact flow from out of our company into the lives of our clients and then into the community? You know, the idea of community building. They don't know how to build a community around their product or service. And that's really how businesses win. You know, it's what you're doing right now, Brock.
I mean, it's so important. I mean, there's so many layers to that I don't want to kind of unpack, but I think going back to, okay, let's talk about the ethos or the mission, right? And like, even for us, I found it took us, I mean, we're still doing it now, but we've been actively working on this for like 3 years. Yeah. Like just figuring out what it is. It took us, honestly, a year and a half to figure out what is our mission, like, which is crazy. After like a year and a half, I'm talking like 6 years in, right? Ours is to make life better, like to make life better for our clients and make life better for our team, right?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, through various means that you can be applied in different ways. That's kind of what we want to do, right? And I think going back to what you said about business failing, not because they don't know what problem they solve, but it's honestly one of the biggest ways to lose business is not communicating your value, right? That accounting firm wasn't communicating the value that they were actually offering. They just they didn't let people know what they were doing, why they were good, right? So I think that's key.
Yeah. Yep.
So what do you think is the hardest part of running a business or of your job?
Wow. I think that differs for everybody because people have different skill sets, weaknesses and whatnot. But for me personally, the hardest part is that my business is still not in a place where I'm doing the things that I love. So I'm not there yet. I'm close. I'm a couple of hires away, and we're making those hires right now, in fact.
Nice.
But I'm running the business still, and I'm writing the proposals, and I'm sending the invoices. If I could take those 3 things away, I'd be a real happy person. You know, that would be perfect. I want to be responsible for leading the vision and designing the trajectory of the business. Yeah. I want to be responsible for being a part of the sales process, but not writing all the proposals. You know, where I can also be a strategist and be creative in the sales process. You know, like when I don't have the time to do the things out, like the type of pitches I would build if I had the time to just focus on the, you know, like the way that I'm going to engage the clients, as opposed to having to write everything out, you know, and you know, pulling all the ideas together. I mean, I think I would be able to be more creative if I was able to focus on simply showing up for the clients, you know, and even just accounting and stuff. Exactly, that's my value. That's
the biggest value. Like you can't replace Thomas. Like you can't, like in a meeting, like nobody brings that fire, right? And that expertise and those ideas. Like I think that's so important. And honestly, like personally, I have the same issue, and I've been like trying for years to get into certain things. For example, you mentioned sales or account management, right? Like the biggest challenge is maybe, you know, discovery is fun. It's exciting. You're talking about good ideas, and then it's, okay, now I got to get this on paper and build a plan and put a price on it and, you know, get the agreement signed and all that stuff. So that part, definitely.
I hate it.
Yeah. Like, I hate it. You know, it's something, you definitely account managers help. I mean, but honestly, for me, the last couple of months, I've honestly got pulled back into it more so than ever, just because everyone's so busy, and then a lot of it's like personal contacts. You want to make sure it goes smoothly, you know, there's extra pressure. So it's always going to be a struggle of like balancing that, like being able to do what you love and where you bring your biggest value. And again, like separating yourselves from those things, but support in the team is so critical, right?
Critical.
Absolutely. Well, I feel you there. How do you replenish your energy?
My kids, I got 2 boys, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Nice.
And it's funny because sometimes they deplete my energy too, but for the most part, that's how I replenish my energy. Like when I get to go home and just get to like hang out with them when I don't have any, late meetings or late emails to write. It's like, that is where I think I'm the happiest, when I'm with my wife and my 2 sons, and we're just relaxing, because we are both entrepreneurs and we lead a busy life. So when we can just rest with our kids, that's really replenishing to me. I also like to, it's funny because the work that I do is like, it's actually who I am. It's what I love. So I actually like to be alone sometimes and just come up with ideas. Like, I just like doing that. I enjoy that. I like researching and learning about other people who are solving problems with art and creativity, and activism. I love to just spend time learning about that stuff as well.
Yeah.
I love to sit down for 2 or 3 hours just going through Vimeo and watching just some amazing film work that artists create. I love that. I love being able to explore for myself and by myself as well in the realm that we play in.
Absolutely. Yeah. So gaining inspiration from other people's creativity or art.
Big time.
That's really cool. And the family thing, I have a 5-year-old and 2-year-old, so I definitely.
I'm okay. You're right.
I feel it. Yeah. Children are tough. Have you been able to get out for a date yet in the past few months? You got someone to babysit and.
You know what? Not since quarantine started.
You gotta do it.
I have to. Just don't let my wife see this, because. Anyhow.
I feel you. And are you? So you mentioned you like kind of watching videos and stuff like that. Are you a reader at all? Do you like books? Any books you're reading right now? Or anything?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I love to read. I don't read enough, but I love to read. A book I'm reading right now that's really, really good is all about ethnography. It's not like, it's still related to what we do. But it's all about ethnography in the private sector. So the idea of that anthropological study in business, and it goes back to my first answer on what you were saying when you asked me what's creativity to me. Creativity to me is being able to understand who someone is, and this book on ethnography is it is eye-opening in that it really is a practical guide on how to get to really understand somebody. And I'm enjoying this book so much because it applies to my personal life too. Like, I'm starting to think about myself in different ways as well. Ask myself questions about myself in different ways because of the guidance in this book. The author is Ladner, Ladner.
Very good.
A practical guide on ethnography in the private sectors, I think is what's called.
That's
but
really
it's an amazing book. And I think anybody in this call right now needs to learn the principles in that book, because whether you are a strategist, an account manager, a designer, a developer, whatever the positions are at SEO Plus, like, you need to start your work from the place of understanding the client and the problem. A designer who's creating a website really needs to choose the colors based on what the person is trying to convey, the client's trying to convey, and who they are, and what we want people to feel when we see it, and all those things, and all the scientific and cognitive aspects of color and things like that as well. But you can't do those things unless you start by understanding, and that quest to understand, I think, will make all of our work better and lead us on that trail to that path to mastery.
Absolutely. That's so important. I think it's often forgotten, right? Even just in the, when you get really busy, you have a high volume of things and you get some on your plate, whether it's an email or a task, and you just kind of like, I just need to get this done and get it off my plate sometimes, right?
Exactly.
And you can't give it that attention, but like starting that, like, who is this client? What's the problem I'm trying to solve today? And trying to apply it within the task parameters, I think is a really good perspective, right? Like in anything in business, right? So.
Yeah, 100%.
And okay, I got another one. If you could give your younger self, any advice, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Take a time management course. I suffer with it so bad. Like, I am totally, I am the artist or the creative archetype. I'm I fight every day to remain structured and organized, and it's just not my personality. I would tell myself when I was younger to think more about time and structure and all those things. You know, there's the last thing you want to hear when you're 15 or 16 or whatever it is, but it goes a long way. When I am structured and I'm organized, man, does it make being an artist really, really simple. You know, you just flow. You just get your stuff done. You know, and you do it well. You know, and you allocate the time necessary to do great work. And I know that for me personally, like I feel like absolute dog doo-doo when I don't do great work. And I feel really, really good when my work is good. And I can tell you, like the key ingredient is understanding time. You know, that's one thing I would say to my younger self. And the next thing I'd say to my younger self is don't define your worth based on material things. Because when I was young, like I don't come from a lot of material things. I mean, I wasn't like poor, but I grew up at the corner of Donald and Saint Laurent. My parents still live there. That's where I was born. Growing up, I saw a lot of crazy stuff that some of you wouldn't even believe. But I always used to think that I was less than because I went to a school in Rothwell Heights where my friends their parents were doctors and lawyers. And when I went to their birthday parties, they had 3 garages and we had 2 painted lines, you know? So I would really tell my younger self, like, hey, you know, wealth and riches in life is about true quality of life, which is how happy you are doing the things you do every day with the things you have, you know? And that's what I would tell myself, you know, the younger self, is to spend more time understanding that, because I think I stressed myself out a little bit with like feeling inferior. And then, you know, being this kind of, you know, macho jock, that for a young man, especially, it turns into a lot of ego and to a lot of bad behavior. And that's what it turned into for me. So as an adult, I'm way more secure, and I don't base my success on how my business is doing or how much I have. You know, I base my success on, you know, how I serve my family and how I serve my team, and how happy I am doing those type of things. Yeah.
Amazing advice. Like, wow. Yeah, no, definitely amazing advice. And I think anyone can take away from that, because I think, you know, that's just, the so I know like Godspeed, you're really involved in kind of the community, right? Like you're a lot of community activities. Like tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so a couple of years ago we founded I co-founded an organization through Godspeed called Good City People. And Good City People started something called Story Night. And Story Night is, it happens at, a lot of times here in the city when it happens, in Ottawa, it happens at a place called Arlington 5. It's a coffee shop off a bank in Arlington. And people come from the community from diverse backgrounds, beliefs, orientations, and tell their story. And, you know, we believe that story is art. And, you know, that's one engagement. Another engagement is through our work every day. One thing we believe in is something that we call blended value, where like you don't have to be a community person in this hand and then like an artist or business person in this hand. It's like, what does it look like to live a life that's converging at all times, where truth and authenticity is converging? So in the work that we choose to do, we work with a lot of mission-driven brands. We don't work with a lot of brands that don't have a solid mission. And it's no knock to anybody that doesn't, you know. A lot of times we work with companies that don't, and by the, you know, after 6 months or a year, they start to live into that, because that's what we, you know, that what we share. That's how we build brands. But spending a lot of time in the impact space is how we also help community and work in community every day. I personally am the Ottawa chapter lead for an organization called Black Boys Code, where you know, we want to make sure that that Black boys have a voice and are stakeholders in the advancement of culture and technology. And if they don't know how to code, then it's not like, no, I was born in 1984, I'm 36, I'm turning 37. Me learning how to code was not as important as if I was a kid today learning how to code, it's important to understand what code looks like and what it means, because our culture is advancing at the hand of technology. So in November, I was asked to take that on, and I have, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a fantastic thing, and it's not a Black thing, it's a community thing. Mm-hmm. So people from all races, cultures, creeds are helping to make this thing work, because they believe that that's true, that young Black boys need to see something different. And absolutely, those are a few ways, a few inputs, community inputs.
That's amazing. I love that. Coding, I learned it at like 14 years old, but it was just like through a course. I know now, I think they're building it into like some, I think it's grade 1, they're almost starting certain
That's
things,
right.
But it's so important. I know, yeah, like you said, like now it's almost becoming, for almost any job, you have to have some level of, education or training on that to be able to, so that's really cool. If there's anything you ever need in that, I would love to be involved on some level,
Fantastic.
And marketer,
I'll take you up on that. That's
awesome.
Yeah,
absolutely. Andrew actually did, I don't know if Andrew's on the call, but there was a video, it was for another organization, but it was about shooting video or whatever, and he did like a little Zoom call or whatever, and like the feedback was amazing. So yeah, anything you ever want there, like we would love to support that in any way.
Fantastic. Well, just to fortify your point, my niece, she's ranked in the top 10 best female basketball players in Canada. She's a point guard for the Olympic team, and she also has a 96 average, and just got a full scholarship to University of California at Irvine. So she got into the neuroscience program, and the first thing they asked her when she went on campus a couple months ago was, "Do you know how to code?"
Wow.
Like, no one would think that you walk into neuroscience and the first thing they ask you is like, "Do you know how to code?" So it's really important, very important.
Wow. That's wild. That's congrats to her, by the way. That's an amazing story. So the questions are rolling in now. Sorry if I missed one there. All right, so now we'll jump right into questions. I know the team's eager. They have a lot of questions for you, Thomas.
Sure.
So we'll get you right. So there was one that was from Andrew. I guess I missed it, but he said, "I like what you said about having a logo. About a logo having a purpose behind just a pretty design. I find it can be very hard to get clients to put their personal, subjective tastes aside and focus on the best possible solution for their business goals. How do you present this to your clients?"
Oh, that's a great question. So I'll use the logo as an example. So if we're at a point in the project where we're addressing the visual identity and we're designing a logo, it's crazy. We only give our clients one choice. So one concept, but we rationalize the heck out of it. So we spend most of our energy rationalizing, re-illustrating to them what their problem is, and us explaining to them that what we're about to show them is the solution. What that does is, if their personal tastes are not in alignment with that problem and solution, their personal tastes, and I say this with respect, but a lot of times just like sound stupid, because there's no weight to their personal taste. So what we always do is we present one concept and we put our whole heart and soul behind it. And we will often create variations of that one concept, but it's one concept. And I can say, like, our rate in getting clients to choose our idea is very, very high. Quick story, the Olympic diving team, which is one of our clients, we put them through a complete rebrand. And they told us, look, we just need you to just create a bunch of concepts and we'll choose one. And I was like, look, we don't do things that way. At the time, because they were a large client, I said yes. And I learned from that project never to break our process. It doesn't matter how big the client is. We broke our process. We gave them 3. They had all kinds of internal wars over the 3. They said, give us 3 more. We gave them 3 more. We gave them 2 more. And by this time, our team was really upset. We were disheartened, not because we weren't getting the concept, like they weren't saying yes to a concept, but because we sold our soul. That's not how we do things. So I got a call saying, come to the office. We need to talk in person. I'm like, oh, they're going to fire us. And what they said is, look, we're tired of holding your pen. We're sorry. How about you just lead us through the way you do things? And the next concept, the only concept, was the one that is their logo right now. If you go to diving.ca, we created that website from top to bottom internally. We wrote all our copy. I came up with the slogan. We did all the design. I shot all those photos. I directed the brand film. Like all of that work came out of them just trusting our process. But our process is based on truth. It's not based on opinions. You know, of course, when it comes to the actual artwork, it's always subjective, but there's always a strong rationale.
I love that. And honestly, everything you're saying just resonates so much in like so many, even like today, like certain experiences. I'm like, this is just like, we're literally on the same page. Branding looks amazing. And like, I think that's really important. Is process. Sometimes your process is to evolve, but like stay in it as much as you can. So every time you go outside, do things differently. You never know where it's going to lead, right?
Yes, it's an unknown place.
That's it. It could be one more meeting. It could be 10. You don't know, right? So trying to keep it as controlled as possible. But I think probably one of the biggest things that I've seen is just building that trust.
Yes.
Building that foundation. You have that trust. You have that leeway, the opportunity just to move around a little bit. That makes a big difference.
Big difference.
All right. We got one more. Another question from Amanda. What strategies do you have to help clients leave their comfort zones, challenge their assumptions, etc.?
You know what? A lot of it comes from the way that we portray ourselves. It's our positioning. A lot of our clients come into our office primed and ready for us. If you go on the Godspeed website, we share a lot. We spend more time educating people on our website than we do selling ourselves. So the reason for that is because I know that once we meet someone, we have the ability to sell ourselves. But what we can't change or we can't affect or can't control or puppeteer is how they come in. So a lot of our strategy centers around us letting people know what we're about and what we're going to do very early. Mm-hmm. You know, so can you just repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. So what strategies do you have to help clients leave their comfort zones and challenge their assumptions?
Yeah. So we let them know really early that we're going to challenge their assumptions, that we're going to, like I tell people all the time in the first meeting that, I can't tell you how many 50-year-old white guys in blue suits have come into my office and are crying. I literally have tissue everywhere. Because by the time we dive deep into who they are, like we're going to challenge you. We tell them that. We're going to challenge you and it's going to be hard. And we're going to ask the hard questions. And, there isn't an archetype client that comes in any different. That's something that I love about what I've learned is that, like, you take things like age and gender and race and all of that. What I've learned at Godspeed in my time doing Godspeed is that like we're all the same. Like every company, whether they're like a large company, small company, it's run by Indians, or black people or white people or women or men or groups or not groups. Like everybody has the same challenge. Like we have the same challenge our clients do. We laugh sometimes and we're like, we really need to stop telling people that stuff until we fix that stuff ourselves. Some of these things, because we all have the same challenges. So the strategy is to really, get people to understand that they need to come out of their comfort zones. So we tell them straight, like right off the jump, like, yeah.
I love it. Transparency is critical, right? Right from you. But even starting with your site, I think for us, I feel like our site, it's so old and like the content is so disconnected from where we're at right now. But it's just like moving into that zone of like, hey, we have to like do all this work to rewrite it and communicate that. It's such like a block.
Of course.
Yep.
It took us like 2.5 years to get our website out. Like it was crazy, barber with a bad haircut, but that's why it's important to partner, and we're starting to understand that too, is partnering with other companies to work with us on our own stuff is important, because we don't have the time. We're servicing clients.
Absolutely. But I mean, it really resonates with me. Again, Amanda made a joke. I'll never forget the first in-person meeting I had with you for that reason.
Really?
Years. Amanda was in that meeting. But like I was just saying, like, a client we worked on together recently, prior to you coming in, we were in a challenging spot where I was having trouble, basically pleasing the client. And it was hard, like hard, like for a lot of the team members as well, not just me, but for me personally, I'm just trying to get it to a point where we could have that trust and be able to do our thing without being questioned on every little thing. And I think your approach and kind of where we're at now is like, I've seen it in action and I'm a believer, so it's good. Anton, are there any mistakes you made that helped you grow a lot as a person or a business?
Yes. You know what? I'd say the biggest mistake I've made is not with the work, so to speak. It's with people. So my team in 2016, 17 was a completely different team. The only person that's still here is our art director, Jamie Lee, from that time. And some people transitioned because they just needed to. They had to transition in life. Some moved away and some things like that. But some people just left. We had 2 or 3 people that actually just left Godspeed. And the reason why that happened was because I wasn't clear enough about what I expected. And what that turned into is me being unhappy all the time and me then being a real jerk. And them knowing that I'm not a jerk and I'm wondering why the heck is this guy a jerk to me? And it's funny, the 2 people I have in mind, like I'm still close with, I talk to, all the time today. But being clear about what it is that you're trying to achieve and what you want, like that's a mistake that I made. I wasn't clear enough. Also, I'd say another mistake is just running into projects fast. At some point, I almost lost Godspeed in 2016, 2017. I almost lost Godspeed because we were a team of 5 and we had like 33 active projects. Like, that's crazy. Took all these projects on. It was really like having to work 16-hour days to deliver. It was crazy. That was a big mistake, and I've grown a lot. We're getting to a point now where we're like, with our current team, we're trying to get to a point where we only have like 3 or 4 active accounts. And then when we land that 5th one, we hire another team and we start to build so that every team has 3 or 4 active accounts and not 12 active accounts. So that's something I'm learning as well. One mistake I also made too was just trying to do my own bookkeeping and things like that. One day I found out that my corporation, what's the word that they use? Like they deactivated Godspeed. Like Godspeed was deactivated for like 4 months and I didn't even know, and I was still conducting business, which is crazy. But it's because I was the bookkeeper and I didn't know. The joke was that there's a $20
annual filing.
Yes.
Yeah, my wife does it.
I forgot to do that. For $20, my company became illegitimate for 4 months because I forgot to do that. But I should have never been doing that in the first place. Yeah. So that was a big mistake. I was really scared because I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I've been making money and I don't have a corporation. But great accountants, help me. And the last thing I'd say is trusting partners. There's a time when we used to try to do our own SEO, and then when I met you guys and brought the Jamison Mills project, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. They're gonna do it way better. And you guys killed it on that project. That was a rock star project. And the actual business case for that, real quick, was, hey, we haven't sold a unit in our new building for 2 years. There's 30 units and there are 10 units left. Can you help us? Within like 8 months, we sold all of them. Like, a huge kudos to you guys. Like, I just thought about it now. Like, I've never even like written a testimonial or anything for you. Just let me know and I'll put that on paper. But like, all right. Yeah, that was like, that for us was, we knew you guys were the deal. You folks were the deal when that happened. So the team I was working with over there was amazing. You guys are awesome.
That's awesome. Love it. Yulia, and I'm gonna ask you for that referral. That testimonial. I'm gonna do that.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you.
That's the best. This is from Yulia. So how does your discovery process look like at Godspeed? Can you please share the key steps you think are important to take prior to jumping into the design itself? Thank you.
That's a great question. Our discovery process. So if you ask none of our clients what their favorite thing about dealing with Godspeed was, they'll say the discovery process. So this is what it looks like for us. We call, like, in sales, The sales discovery we call needs assessment. We don't call it discovery. We call it needs assessment. So we assess the needs. Once we have a contract, we go into kickoff, where that's like a 90-minute meeting where all the people who are involved in the project speak together at the same time and confirm the understanding of what we're trying to achieve together. The next part of our process is like an audit process, where that's where we kind of conduct our ethnography, just trying to understand who the people are, right, who the client is right now in their current state. So being a fly in the wall in their walls, so to speak, you know. Then we go into discovery. And discovery will range anywhere between 1 full day and like 5 full business days, depending on the size of the client, where we ask a series of questions. We go through their founding story. We go through, tell us stories about your team that are great, stories about your team that aren't great. We get into their challenges. We dig deep into that section where we really try to understand, like, what does success look like and what's not working. We go into, you know, what is your, at Godspeed we call the vision the big dream. So what is your big dream for this company? And what does that impact look like? We talk about the missions, you know, how you make that big dream real on a daily basis in your company. And at Godspeed we call the mission the magnanimous mission. Magnanimous being, Latin magna for large, and animus meaning soul. So big-hearted mission. What's your big-hearted mission? And we integrate corporate social responsibility into the overall corporate mission, so that the business has that converged purpose and meaning. We go into things like understanding their pillars, understanding their sales process, understanding if their ethos as a company can be seen through the way they do everything. I know I'm blabbing, but we go into all these conversations, and that's why we need a minimum of a full day to 5 business days, you know, with our clients. And it's a workshop. So they're required to do a little work, but they're also required to come with absolutely no lies and full transparency, because we tell them all the time, we can't solve your problems if you don't get there. And what that does is, by the time we sort that out and we get to design, we know the client so well. Design is almost like an outcome. It's not even a process. It's just like the outcome of us knowing who they are. I'll actually show you what discovery turns into. It turns into, I don't know if you can see me, but here's
this is great, the fall tour.
So this book here is what all of our discovery turns into. It's the soul guide, and this is Elite Accounting Soul Guide. So we share a mutual client, and To Do Done. To Do Done has the soul guide that we created. And that's what discovery turns into. We take all of the answers that we get in discovery, and we turn it into a book that ranges anywhere between 50 and 150 pages. But this is like this company's identity in a book. And if you hear Andrew Abraham, the owner and founder of Elite Accounting, if you hear him talk about the process, like he goes and like he raves over it. He says, "I have a new company," and I laugh because he doesn't have a new company. We don't create anything. What we do is we unearth things. We just dug that out and put it in his book so he could see who he really is. We didn't create any of that, right? So anyhow.
And you also bring awareness and attention to something they may not have even thought of, right? So it's like, sometimes you get that question, you're like, honestly, I don't know. Like, I had to think about this. I got to process this. And I got to talk to people about this, and like, that's it. It is unearthing, but not only for like maybe the business owner, but also like the team and the clients to be able to understand that business, because they don't have all the backstory context. I think that's something that's really cool about that.
That's right.
Anyone who sees that probably gets really excited, because I don't even want to read that right now. Like, what's in that book?
It's so cool. Yeah, I know. It's like the mysterious book. Honestly, and it's funny. It's funny because I didn't start the company and go, I'm going to create a soul guide. And we are like one of the few agencies around, like probably even the world, that do this. Because I travel a lot and I speak in all over the US, and I speak in Canada, and everywhere I go, I actually get invited to speak about this book and this process. Yeah. That's what they invite me for. Like and people are always blown away. Like people at big brands that I talk to after I speak are like, what would it take for, XYZ company to do this? And I'm like, you don't have anything like this? I'm like, hell no. So I feel actually privileged to have this, to be creating these, because I feel like it was a gift to me too. Like, I just kind of fell on this, over time. It's not something I just planned. So yeah, they're awesome.
No, you definitely have something special there, and I know companies struggle to even get a brand guidelines out. Forget about a full them in a book. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more question. Corey, so hi Thomas, I'd love to hear your perspective on copywriting and reader engagement. I've noticed that educating audiences and supporting clients' demands, being educated and supported yourself, detailed briefs, establishing great connections with clients, etc. What are your thoughts on this, and what are the most critical tools you believe a writer should use? Programs, process, etc. So basically, what's your perspective on copywriting and reader engagement?
So it comes back to that piece of knowing your client, knowing the reader, and also knowing how your subject matter is going to take them from somewhere to somewhere. At Godspeed, we call that somewhere to somewhere a transformative trajectory. We have to understand what the transformative trajectory is. And when we're helping a client to develop a vision statement, that's what we actually use. It's this thing we call the transformative trajectory. How is their vision taking someone from here to here? And, once you understand who your audience is, you really intimately understand what you're sharing is going to do for them, then you can actually write with authority. And that's what's very important in copywriting. It has to be written with authority every single time. It can't just be information. A lot of copywriters just spew information, but there's a difference. You know the difference between someone who's writing with authority and someone who's just writing for the sake of putting out information. So what I would say is that, a copywriter first, number one, needs to be a strategist. I tell everybody on my team, you are a strategist first at Godspeed, then whatever it is that you do. You're a strategist first, then a copywriter. Strategist first, then a designer. Strategist first, then a developer. So a copywriter needs to really anchor and center herself on strategy. Like really think about the problem. Get to a level where the first bit of your writing has nothing to do with the words and the prose you're going to use, when you put out the final output. You're really just creating a strategy doc. You're taking a brief and you're creating a strategy document for yourself. And you're creating a journey for the reader, but a journey that has value at every milestone. And I think that that's how we've guided our copywriters and how we challenge our copywriters. I'm the executive creative director at Godspeed. So like when we write copy, our team writes copy, I'm like the last set of eyes that sees it. And typically I go in excited and optimistic, but always ready to tear it apart, because I place myself in a very selfish place, because that's where your audience is. They're selfish. They just care about them and what you can do for them. What have you done for me lately? And that's how I approach, when I'm reviewing the work, I approach it that way. And I say, do you know me and my problem? Do you have the tools necessary to fix it? If so, prove it, and where is that going to take me? Those 4 things, if you write with those 4 things, you're golden every time.
It's amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much, Thomas. I'm sure Corey will love that response. Thank you again. We're at 1:00. I mean, wow, there's a lot of content and amazing tips and everything in a jam-packed into an hour. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Honestly, every time we chat, I really enjoy it, and I hope we can have more conversations, going forward. Again, thank you on behalf of the team, and hopefully I got to come by there at some point. You got to come by here at some point.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Check your office.
Yeah, 100%. I'll swing by for sure. So again, awesome. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Take care, Thomas.
All right, take care, Amanda. Bye-bye.
Bye.